Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Heart to Heart's annual fundraising banquet, It's a Beautiful Life. Tonight you will hear from some very special people who will share their stories with you. Some will make you laugh, and some will touch your heart. My name is Linda Davis, and I am the current president of the board for Heart to Heart. It's hard to believe that it's been 2 years since we've been able to get together in person for our annual banquet. During that time, we have all faced some uncertainties and some problems that we would never have expected in our lifetime. Even during that time of uncertainties, there were 2 things that I know remained certain. Number 1, families needed help, even more help than they've ever had. Because of financial difficulties and shutdowns, the people in this area had increased needs. You will hear tonight of changes that have been made at Heart to Heart in order for us to better serve the families in our area. You can't help the babies if you can't help the families. And number 2, Heart to Heart was there every time without fail. Through the shutdowns and financial difficulties, Heart to Heart was able to meet their needs. Sure, we had to change our routines in order to help them out, but we did it, and the staff and the volunteers of the center came through every single time. Thank you to them for the compassion and the hard work that they showed during this time. And thank you to the donors who entrusted us with their funds, and they stood by us, and they continue to believe that all life is sacred and worth fighting for. I want to thank the board that I had the privilege of being the president. They worked very hard this year in order to make things happen that have never happened before, and I so appreciate every single one of them. So thank you for you, our donors, that believed in us and continue to believe in us. And we appreciate you so much being here this evening. So on behalf of the board, on behalf of the babies, and on behalf of the staff at the center and our volunteers, on behalf of all of us, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to each of you. And again, my name is Ryan Rose, and I'm going to be your MC this evening. We've got some wonderful guest speakers that are going to be joining us this evening. And I'd like to introduce our first guest this evening. And our first guest is State Representative Justin Boyd, who is serving his 4th term in the Arkansas House of Representatives. He represents District 77, and he's going to be bringing our state report this evening. And he attended University of Arkansas in Fort Smith and pursued his education at the Walton College of Business, where he earned his MBA. He earned his Doctor of Pharmacy degree from the UAMS College of Pharmacy, and he is a pharmacist at Coleman Pharmacy in Alma. Would you join me in welcoming State Representative Justin Boyd to the stage, please?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here and speak to you tonight. It is a real honor to be able to be here and give you a legislative update from the 93rd General Assembly. So, who here has heard of Arkansas Right to Life? Just a couple of you. Okay. So, according to Arkansas Right to Life, there are 13 pro-life bills in this session. That's a significant number. As well, there were 3 bills that the legislature blocked that would have been anti-pro-life. So it was an exciting opportunity to be a part of that. This was arguably the most pro-life legislative session we've had, it certainly in recent history and arguably ever. I also wanted to make it, I'd be remiss to not make it a point. Senator Pitch is here. He did his part in helping make sure that these legislative bills passed, and so it's good to see you here. Thank you for being here. So I guess I've got a second question for y'all. Did I mention that Arkansas is the #1 pro-life state as determined by the Americans United for Life? This was welcome news, but it's going to take a lot of work to stay there. And just a reminder, I mean, a lot of that ranking is legislative, but at the end of the day, the grassroots, what we're doing, what's being done in heart to heart, what's being done by each of you being here, that's pro-life. That is every bit as, if not more important than what we do in the legislature. So thank you for your continued efforts. So I'm not going to go over all 13 bills and the other three. I'm going to hit the highlights. But I'd be remiss if I didn't start with what was referred to as Senate Bill 6. This was a bill by Senator Rapert and Representative Mary Bentley. So what did it do? It abolishes abortion in Arkansas, except in cases of the life of the mother. This was filed and passed as a direct challenge to Roe v. Wade. So this is a big deal. We don't know what's going to happen. Currently, it's passed. It's out there. Judge Christine Baker, a federal judge in Little Rock, has blocked it from going into effect, but that's the first step. We're going to hope and pray that we, have a better outcome on appeal. So, another one. This isn't exactly what we would just immediately think of as a pro-life bill, but it's certainly part of the pro-life movement, and it's important. So Senate Bill 289, Senator Hammer was the one, and then Representative Smith were the sponsors of this bill, but I had a lot to do with it as well. So when in healthcare, sometimes you're asked to do things you don't want to do, and we all have a conscience. So Senate Bill 289 provides important conscience protections for all healthcare workers. So this is an important bill that strikes about a good balance between the healthcare facility. It's not right to go to work at some place you're going to say, hey, I'm not going to do that. It gives the facility the ability to kind of vet people on the front end and make sure they're going to be a fit. As when I used to work for Mercy, we would talk about hiring for fit. So that was part of it. But it also allows the healthcare worker to make sure that they're not forced to be involved in a procedure where they wouldn't want to be involved. There was a lot of news about this, but at the end of the day, what's important to know is this says you don't have to participate in certain services. There's nothing in it that says, hey, here's a patient over here that I don't have to treat. It's nothing like that. It's very clear that if I have a conscience issue with a specific service, then I don't have to participate. And it strikes, again, a good balance between the employee and the facility. The Arkansas Right to Life bill. I think this is an extremely important bill. So the one that Arkansas Right to Life, that they specifically was their bill, was the Right to Know and See Act. So it amends the current Right to View Act to require the provider to display the ultrasound and give a verbal explanation of what the ultrasound depicts. This is an especially powerful bill which will have an immediate impact on abortions in Arkansas. I'd be very remiss if I didn't talk about this one. So, when we talk a lot about legislation, pro-life legislation, we're talking about things we're doing, to prevent someone from having an abortion. But there's another side to that that's just as important. What are we doing for the moms so that they know what resources are available? So Representative Dotson, he came up with a bill. It's called the Every Mom Matters Act. It's an important bill. It makes sure that moms know the resources that are available to them so that moms feel comfortable, moving through the pregnancy to delivery. This has been proven in another state. I believe it was Texas. Don't hold me to that, but it's been proven, and there was a significant reduction in the number of abortions after it was implemented. And there were, again, several others that we passed. I'm not going to go into those, but I did want to talk a little bit on the other end of the spectrum. I think here, primarily, we're talking about babies, but we also have the other end, end of life. And so According to Arkansas Right to Life, we also blocked 2 bills, which they believe that, and I agree. I worked with them, but they would have, potentially weakened end-of-life decision-making and given people, they would have weakened end-of-life decision-making. We'll just say it like that. Finally, we blocked a bill to keep donors' names safe in non-candidate expenditures in certain judicial elections. This is very important. If you contribute to certain non-candidate causes, you don't want your name out there. In today's woke culture, this is an extremely important issue, and it was very much a pro-life bill. So again, this is just a review of the bill, a few of the bills. Each bill has its own right or importance in its own right. So I just want to conclude again with this was arguably the most pro-life legislative session in Arkansas history, definitely in recent history. I want to encourage you to stay informed, stay engaged, and let's keep fighting for what is true and right. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Boyd. We're so grateful to have representatives fighting for life in the Arkansas legislature. I've been tasked with sharing just a little bit with you about why we do this banquet before I introduce our next speaker. Before I do that, I just want to say that joining the board of directors at Heart to Heart, for me it was a decision about stopping just saying that I was pro-life and being pro-life. And that's what we're here for tonight. We can say we're pro-life, but at the end of this banquet, you're going to take an action that says that you are pro-life. And so I'm grateful for you being here this evening. But what I want to do is share a few things about the center. Our support center is a non-denominational Christian pro-life ministry, and it's dedicated to helping young girls, women, men, and families who are or have already experienced a crisis pregnancy. Now, I want to share 5 verses with you from Deuteronomy 30. They asked a pastor to be the MC, so they knew they were going to get someone to read the Bible here. So hang with me for just a second. Deuteronomy 30, starting at verse 15. Now, this is, what I love about this is God after establishing a covenant with Israel, and he is setting the terms of this covenant. And so God says, "See, I have set before you today life and good, death and evil. If you obey the commandments of the Lord your God that I command you today, by loving the Lord your God, by walking in his ways, and by keeping his commandments and statutes and his rules, then you shall live and multiply. And the Lord your God will bless you in the land that you're entering to take possession of it. But if your heart turns away, and you will not hear, but are drawn away to worship other gods and serve them, I declare to you today that you shall surely perish. You shall not live long in the land that you're going over the Jordan to enter and possess." This is a verse I want you to hang on to, verse 19. "I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore choose life, that you and your offspring may live." That really hit hard with me. And as I think about Heart to Heart and all the things that the center offers, from pregnancy tests and ultrasounds and counseling and community outreach and all the different places that our directors and volunteers go, we're solely supported through donations of prayer, time, and financial support from individuals like you. So when you give tonight, you're supporting the saving of unborn children. And one of the things I hear all the time is that, well, you're pro-life and you're against abortion, but what do you do for the lives that are already on this earth? This center supports children and families who are already walking and talking. So when you support Heart to Heart, it goes beyond just birth. It goes into the families and making families healthy and moving forward and doing great things for our community. So I want to introduce our center director this evening, and that's Candace Caputo. I've had the great fortune of working alongside her for these past years, and she has been with Heart to Heart for 10 years this coming November. Her passion is helping those in need and loving on the thousands of families that she serves and ministers to in this great community. Would you join me in welcoming Candace Caputo to the stage this evening?
Hello, everyone. So nice to have you here. I want to personally thank you for being here. Let me go over here by the microphone. It's my honor on behalf of the Board of Directors, staff, and volunteers to welcome you here tonight to our annual fundraising banquet. A lot of you have been here before, so you know kind of what to expect. But you could have been somewhere else tonight. And you chose to join us so you could invest in this work, which is touching hearts and saving lives in your community. We greatly appreciate your partnership and your time here tonight. As we continue our program tonight, I want to recognize our board of directors, with whom I have the privilege to work alongside. These are volunteers, guys, who give their time, very, very much appreciated. They serve so that the mission that we serve here can go forward. And I would love for all the board members to stand now, please, so we can honor them with a round of applause. Thank you all so very much. I would also like to recognize our very hardworking staff and volunteers. We could not do any of this without them. They are our hands and feet in the center. They put in a lot of time daily. So at this time, would our volunteers stand? And Tammy, you're included in that. And Lauren Lum, you're definitely included in that. We appreciate y'all so much, guys. I'm not going to get emotional. I'm not going to do it. But tonight, y'all, we celebrate. We look ahead to this great endeavor in front of us. We celebrate because in the previous year, you, all of you in this room, supporting this work in different ways, joined together to reach 1,441 men, women, children, and preborn children with hope and with love. Your generous support, your time, and your prayers combined to save the lives of over 86 children waiting to be born, children whose mothers chose life after seeking help and support at the Heart to Heart. Our goal has always been to reach more women and families in our community. So under the direction of Dr. Andrew Richey and Dr. Rick Nelson, our medical directors, we extended our services in June of this year to be able to offer free limited ultrasounds to our expecting clients. Ultrasound, as most of you know, is a very, very invaluable tool because it opens a window to the woman's womb, to the mother's womb. And statistics show that 80% of abortion-minded women will choose life after seeing their baby via ultrasound. During the ultrasound scan, the mom-to-be will see her baby kick and dance and hear her unborn baby's heartbeat for the first time. Now she knows without a doubt that the image on the screen is not a blob of tissue, of cells, but instead a precious, innocent life. It's a baby. It's her baby. With that being said, I'm very excited to tell you that since offering ultrasounds in June to the public, 7 moms who were contemplating abortion have chose life for their unborn babies. So 7 babies have been born. And that, y'all, that's why we're here. Yeah. And I always get emotional about that because it is our passion. It's what we do. When I see these moms and they come and we counsel them after their ultrasound and they say, "That's my baby. That's a baby up there." And I said, "Yeah, sweetheart, it's a baby. It's moving and kicking," and they're just like, "I had no idea." So it's such a blessing to be able to offer that. I would sincerely like to express my gratitude to the UFIS sonographer supervisors, Jody Callahan and Alyssa Cole, and their wonderful sonography students. And a big special thank you to Katie Ward. She has such a heart for what we do here, and she blesses us every week by offering ultrasounds to our mamas, and she loves on them, and she's just a blessing. So thank you so much, Katie. As you see, we have a lot to celebrate. We do so many good things in the community, and we're blessed to do this. And it's because of y'all that we're able to do this. We get to rescue moms and babies from the travesty of abortion. We help mothers and fathers find a way to save and support their babies. And we make sure families have the support to grow happier and healthier. We celebrate every day when our clients see the love of Christ in the lives of those who serve here. Their lives are changed for the better, just walking through those doors and receiving that love. No judgment, just love and support. Tonight you will hear many stories how our love here is building families and giving new hope to those who need it most. I appreciate you all for being here. Thank you so very much. I'm honored to have you all here. Thank you.
I have the honor of introducing our next guest speaker. Her name's Chrissy Wynn, and she is a current board member at Heart to Heart. And she is one who is active and always very ready to serve when needed. Her story of getting involved with Heart to Heart was not a coincidence. We believe that God always has a plan. Chrissy came to a small fundraising event that Heart to Heart was hosting at Cherryberry, and she got to visit with Lauren, our development director. She came wanting to learn more and never knew that she would have the opportunity to serve and be involved as she is. But as we said, God always has a plan. Chrissy's been a board member for almost 2 years. She's a native Arkansan and a financial advisor with Edward Jones, a loving mother of 3 beautiful children. Please open your heart to her story this evening. Would you join me in welcoming Chrissy to the stage?
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to start with a full disclosure that I suffer from glossophobia, which is a fear of public speaking. And I'm also arachnophobic, so if a spider comes running across here, then I'm out of here. But in all seriousness, the story I'm going to share tonight is, without a doubt, the hardest chapters of my life. So please bear with me. I think it's important that you understand my background and my childhood, so I'll start there. I was raised in a fairly large family. I had 5 siblings and both my parents, but too often I also felt very much alone and neglected. My siblings and I didn't get along, and my parents had their own marital issues that they were dealing with, and they did their best and sacrificed their own happiness to keep our family together. But even as a child, I could see that my parents didn't love each other, and it was really heartbreaking. My parents ended up getting divorced when I was 14, but by then, the damage was already done, and my childhood was gone. That is how my dream of becoming a mom was born. I never really thought about my career path or what I was going to be as an adult, but I knew that one day I was going to be a mother. That's all I knew, and I knew I was going to show my children all the love and affection that every child deserves, and I was going to give them everything that I ever wanted. I also told myself that I was not ever going to stay in a relationship just to keep my family whole, because I experienced it myself, and a split family is better than a toxic family. Right after I graduated high school and turned 18, I went off to pursue my dream. I found myself in Wichita, Kansas, fell in love, and a few months later ended up pregnant. And I was thrilled. I was praising God for answering my prayers because my life was about to begin and my life finally had purpose. That's until I shared the news with the father, and he wasn't as excited and suggested abortion. I told him that wasn't an option, so we later decided that it was best for me to return home here to Fort Smith with my family because Wichita wasn't where we wanted to raise our children or my child. I was to return home, and he would join me soon after to announce the news to my family. But a couple of weeks after returning home, I found out that he was with someone else, and at this point, I was about 3 months pregnant and living with my mom. It was getting harder to hide the pregnancy, so I had to break the news to her myself. My mom gave me two choices: either leave or abort the baby. She was too embarrassed to have an unwed daughter carrying a baby. I knew I had nothing to offer this child, and if I brought him into this world, it would just end up suffering. So I started to call around town to clinics and hospitals looking for a way to abort the baby. There's one call that I remember very clearly, and that was to St. Edward's. The receptionist told me that they were a Catholic hospital and they don't abort babies. And it wasn't what she said, but the way she said it. Her tone just pierced through my heart, and that's when I realized that I couldn't live with myself if I went through with an abortion. That was the last call I made that day, and there was only one other solution I could think of. I ran to the drugstore and bought a bottle of Aleve and swallowed about 60 pills. If I couldn't keep my child, then I didn't want to live either. I crawled into bed and laid as still as I could because every little movement made me sick. I prayed over and over and asked God to please, if he's going to take my baby, then take me too. But if he gets me through this, then I will dedicate my life to this child. Eventually, I couldn't hold it down anymore, and everything just came up, and I passed out. The next morning, by God's grace, I woke up and I felt fine. But I was still stuck in the same situation, still 18 and confused, and had a decision to make. That weekend, one of my sisters that was attending the U of A came home to visit, and we never got along growing up, but my mom told her that I was pregnant, and I told her about my suicide attempt. She invited me to come stay with her, and she became my guardian angel and took care of me throughout my pregnancy. When I moved up to Northwest Arkansas, that was the first time that I had gone to visit a doctor and got to see my baby girl. We told them about my situation, and they helped me apply for aid, and my baby girl was born very healthy. Slowly, life started to get back on track. When my daughter turned 5 and began kindergarten, I also decided to go back to college. I attended an online college and worked full-time during the day and studied all night. In 2012, I graduated and earned my bachelor's, and that same year I got engaged to someone that shared the same dream as me. He wanted to start a family, so I put my career on hold to pursue my first dream. I focused so much on that dream that I didn't see my reality. See, I was engaged to an alcoholic, and he was emotionally, sexually, verbally abusive, but I didn't see it at the time. I ended up getting pregnant with my second child in 2013 and dealt with this toxic relationship throughout the entire pregnancy. But thankfully, my son was born very healthy as well. The father and I raised our son together for a short period, but he was still the same abusive man. And I tried to leave several times, but he would remind me that I would be the cause of a broken family. And I didn't want to be that cause, and I didn't want to be a single mom again, so I continued my life with him. But then one day I remembered what I once told myself: a split family is better than a toxic family. My dream was to raise happy children with all the love and affection that they deserved, not to put them through the same negative environment that I grew up in. So I made the decision to leave once and for all. But then, a couple weeks later, I found out that I was pregnant with his second child. My son wasn't even 1 yet, and my oldest daughter was only 10. So I told myself that it would be impossible to raise a preteen and 2 babies alone. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I did know that I was not going to put myself and my children back into that negative family environment again, so I never looked back. I did what I had to do, and 7 years later, here we are today. My children are 18, 7, and 6 years old. They're happy, they're healthy, and I'm living my dream. I wanted to share this story tonight because I had 3 challenging pregnancies, each with their own challenges, and I could have used the support from Heart to Heart if I knew about them. God led me to this organization in 2019, and my heart is with their mission. I was blessed with supportive family and friends, but there are others who aren't as blessed. And I know someone needed to hear this story today. I don't know who you are, and I don't know your story, but I want you to know that everything will be okay. Please reach out to me, reach out to Heart so that we can be your blessing. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my story tonight.
You know, that video we watched just a few moments ago shared a statistic that said 86% of women, if they had just one person to support them, would choose life. And looking around the room, I think there's almost 270 of us here. So that would represent if all of us were able to support just one person going through something like what Chrissy's gone through, it would save somewhere around 235 babies. Testimonies like Chrissy's, powerful and encouraging, but sadly are not rare and are not few and are not nearly as wonderful as an outcome with your 3 wonderful kids that you have. So thank you again for being here this evening. And what I'd like to do is we're going to share a video from another one of our board members. And this is Bryn Tucker. And she's one of our amazing board members and volunteers. I'm sure that you saw her at check-in this evening. So if you would, turn your attention to the screen as we play this.
Good evening, all. My name is Bryn Tucker, and I am a volunteer for Heart to Heart, and I wanted to share with you a little bit about my story. When I was 16, I found out that I was pregnant, and as you can expect, that was met with some hesitation and even some rejection. Thankfully, my mom stepped up from the beginning and was very supportive. Scared, but very supportive. She's a single mom, and so I can imagine adding another person to care for besides your 16-year-old daughter was probably a very scary thing for her. My boyfriend at the time, he and his family did not know what to do and very much rejected the notion and me and my baby. And I remember the rhetoric that I continually would hear was that he was just a clump of cells. And that's what they kept coming back to me with. And so that was kind of the negativity that I was facing. And I remember one day my mom took me to our local pregnancy support center back in Texas where I lived. And I remember when I walked in, the ladies were so kind, so sweet. And I remember, even though it was June, that there was a Christmas tree with bunches of little pairs of socks on it. And I didn't know why. I just knew it was a Christmas tree with a bunch of socks on it. And I remember sitting down with the woman who would read my results back to me and found out that I was very pregnant. And she was so excited for me and she was joyful. And it was a good thing. And he wasn't a clump of cells. He was a baby. I was going to have a baby in February. And she didn't shame me for being 16 years old and pregnant. And she was just instantly supportive. And that meant everything to me. And I remember when I was leaving, we walked by the Christmas tree with socks on it, and she let me pick out a pair for my baby. And I picked out a little pair of blue and white socks. Had no idea if I was going to have a boy or a girl, but that was the pair that I picked out. And I remember feeling celebrated, not just supported, celebrated. And it was the most beautiful thing to be celebrated for this child that I was not expecting, for this child that was certainly a life and not a clump of cells. And he is now 23 years old, been married 2 years to a wonderful young lady. And I am so thankful that he's here. And it is such a joy to be able to be on the other side of that table now and to be able to give back as a volunteer, doing pregnancy tests with young women and seeing the same look in their eyes and knowing that when I meet with them, that we can celebrate and enjoy and be excited about this new life that is coming, this baby that they are going to have in the coming months. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
If you would, take a look at those gold lapel pins with the little feet at your table. If everybody would just grab theirs, I'd like you to take a close look at those. Wear mine all the time. And as I was listening to Bryn's testimony and talking about those socks, you have gold ones, I've got a silver one on, but those are the exact size of an unborn baby's feet at 10 weeks after conception. It's an international pro-life symbol, and it's been used for over 35 years. And that's our gift to you for your prayer and support for Heart to Heart. But I just want you to think about that. I just want you to consider where and when you can wear these and start a conversation with people and let them know what you stand for and what pro-life really is. Our next guest this evening is Paul Weisenfels, and he has been a faithful supporter and advocate for Heart to Heart each and every year. Paul was specifically led to become more involved in the pro-life movement, and each year he reflects on the ways he can be better involved in the Heart to Heart ministry. We hope that through his pro-life journey that you will be open and reflective in ways that you can actively be a part of our mission. And my prayer is that it may motivate you and that you can play a vital role in the fight for life. So would you join me in welcoming Paul Weisenfels to the stage this evening?
Good evening, and as you know, I've lived here all my life, born and raised in Fort Smith, raised in a very devout Catholic family. And I say that because that has had so much to do with where I'm at now in this part of my life. There were 6 of us children, mother and father. And my earliest memories, every evening after our evening meal, before we all went to bed, we would all sit down in the family room and we would pray the rosary. Now, you know, as a kid, as a child that young, a lot of times you're fighting and teasing the other sibling, or you're really not paying attention. But my parents were very, very patient. My mother was actually a convert to the Catholic faith. She was born and raised in the Southern Baptist tradition. Her father was a deacon in the Southern Baptist tradition. And when she decided to join the Catholic faith, she told me this. She says, "My father told me to be the best Catholic she could be." And that really surprised me that he, a Baptist deacon, would say that. But that she was. She was a very, very strong, supportive mother. And, you know, growing up, we were always, what I'm going to share with you is a short synopsis or testimonial of my life and the fact that I was not always, I was not pro-life for years and years, even after several instances of conversion. I still held on to the belief that abortion was okay. Some people did it, you know. But anyways, by the time I was 15, I had already embarked on a life of drug and alcohol abuse, 15 years old. And this persisted for about 4 years, all the way through my high school years. And I can recall coming home at night and just passing out in bed. And that was my life. On the weekends, it was drugs and alcohol. And my parents eventually found out about this, and I know that it worried them greatly. But I began to desire a change in my life. And I didn't really know what to do. But one night when I came home after a night of drinking and drugs, I just, on impulse, reached into my dresser drawer and I pulled out my rosary. And I remember laying in bed there and just starting the rosary and then just falling asleep. And I did this for several weeks. I would come home at night, and this was my the way I dealt with my pain and you know the life that I was living. Well, December, it was the vigil of the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. I remember that now. It was the night of December the 7th. It was almost midnight. A friend of mine, actually the guy who had introduced me to drugs and alcohol, asked me to come down and watch a movie with him. And I thought, oh, this is nice. Well, I got down there and the movie was The Cross and the Switchblade by David Wilkerson. I don't know if y'all are familiar with this movie. I watched that and I was deeply, deeply impressed and convicted. And I remember that right before I left to go home, he says, "Could I pray with you?" And I said, "Yes." And so we knelt there in his living room, and he prayed for me, and I prayed, and I asked the Lord to come into my heart and deliver me from the life that I'd been living. And I went home. I was a free man. I mean, I was instantly delivered. And I remember the next few nights, one of my buddies called me and he says, "Hey, I got some stuff, man. You want to go out?" And I just remember saying, "I don't do that anymore. I belong to Jesus." And that's what I told him. And there was this long pause. And he says, "What's the matter with you, man? I got some good stuff." I said, "I don't want it. I don't do that anymore." The significance of that date didn't really occur to me till later on in life. But I went on through my life, and eventually I opened up a business in 1985, which probably most of y'all know I own Paul's Meat Market. And I met my wife in 2005. I mean, that's when we started. We got married in 2008. But before that, for a period of time there, after I was married at that time when I opened my business and I did go through a divorce. I hate to say it, but I did. And a lot of that was due to the fact that I put my business first instead of God first in my life. And this went on for a few years, and eventually we divorced. And when that happened, I was thrown back into this life of immorality and dissolution, and I lived that life until I met Sandy. And even then, I struggled with that, with that part of my life. And during this time, I was starting to develop thoughts about abortion, and my thinking was, personally, I wouldn't advise it, but if that's what somebody wants to do, then it's okay. Well, I began to see that as a very hypocritical point of view. I was cowardly when it came to the topic of abortion. I went along with the secular reasoning, which is very, very rampant today. And so I struggled with that, and let me back up just a second. I had fallen away from church and hadn't been going to church, and just really felt like I had my life under control. I didn't really need God in my life. And I began to really struggle with my past and the sins in my life. And I began to really I spent a lot of time trying to justify everything. And I couldn't justify how I had been living and the things that I'd been doing. And I struggled with this for several years. And I finally began to reach out to God and say, Lord, I need something in my life. And I'm not it. Well, it finally came to a head, Holy Week of 2007, IC Church. I decided that I was going to go down for Holy Week services. And remember, I hadn't been to church in years, and I hadn't been to confession in years, 30 years or plus to be exact. I went down there that night, and I sat in the pew, and I prayed, and then I went to confession. And the grace of God began the healing in my life that I so desperately needed. And that is when I found out about Heart to Heart, was in 2007. I think it was again at IC Church where the pastor spoke about Heart to Heart and their mission. And my first thought was, this is God's will. This is God's will for me. I will support this ministry, this endeavor. And so I began to support Heart to Heart. And my attitude about abortion changed. and solidified and has become what it is now. I truly am pro-life, 100%. There is no wishy-washy about it anymore. I know what truth is. And in 2008, I had the opportunity to go to Europe, and I went on a pilgrimage to the shrine at Lourdes and at Fatima. And that solidified God's grace in my life. And I say all this because God's grace is there. In spite of your past, in spite of what you're going through, God's grace is in your life. If you will look back, you can see it. And that is what I have been able to do, is look back into my life and see definite moments of God's grace, the graces of conversion. And this is what is so needed in the world today. And so I have taken it upon myself the last 3 or 4 years in particular. Every night I go to my room and I offer my rosary and I pray for the doctors and nurses that perform and assist at abortions. I pray for their conversion, for the salvation of their souls. I pray for the politicians who support this evil of abortion. And I pray for the conversion and the salvation of their souls. But most importantly, and this is what is so important to me, is praying for the women and the men who have experienced the evil and the trauma of abortion. Praying for these women and these men, the women in particular, to be healed, because only God knows the depth of the trauma that they experience through an abortion. And this is what has become my focus in life. This is my ministry now that I offer to the Lord. And I pray and ask that you would not only support Heart to Heart financially and encourage others to do so, but to pray. Pray without ceasing. Pray constantly for our nation, for the healing, for the conversion of our nation, and for the healing and conversion of those who still promote and uphold this evil. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Weisenfels, for such a powerful and committed testimony. Our next guest this evening is Dayla Skelton. And Dayla was brought to us through Tammy Andrews, who was our client services manager at the time. She has a big heart in sharing her story for the sake of helping others understand the hardship that come with an abortion, and that she can spread the light to other young girls who are facing these types of decisions and realizing they have more options than just one. I hope that her story will allow for a great understanding of how important a pregnancy center like Heart to Heart is to our community. Would you join me in welcoming Dayla Skelton to the stage this evening?
As I started to prepare myself for what I would say, I began to hear the Lord speak to me through several different songs. There was one in particular that every time I heard it, I felt like God was telling me, this is what I've been preparing you for. The song starts out, How could you fall so far? You should be ashamed of yourself. These were the lies that the devil was trying to make me believe. The devil tried to keep me in bondage for my transgressions. But the song doesn't end there, and neither does my story. The song goes on to say, look what you've done in me. Look at me now. Look how you made me new. The enemy did everything that he could do. Oh, but look what you've done. When I first was asked to give my testimony at this banquet, my immediate thought was no. How in the world could I get up in front of a room full of strangers and tell them my testimony? A couple weeks went by after the ladies had asked me. The Lord started to remind me of all the reasons why I should be here. One evening, the Lord really started to deal with me about it. I got up the next morning and immediately messaged Tammy to put me down to speak. My story starts when I was 15. My parents had been divorced for a while. I was living with my mom, and I would see my dad on the weekends. I remember the day so clearly that I had to go to the emergency room for some health issues. While waiting for the test results, the doctor asked if there's any possibility I could be pregnant. Scared of what my mom would think, I quietly answered yes. Results came back positive. My heart sank. Here I am, 15, and pregnant. The ride home was complete silence. I remember getting home and being terrified of the conversation that was about to happen. My mom immediately pulled me into our bathroom and said, "You only have one option, and that's abortion." I was told if I kept the baby, I'd be living on the streets. Here I stand in front of my mom, looking at me like I was a complete stranger. This is my mom. She's supposed to be my protector and love me unconditionally, and she was not any of that at the moment. The very next week, I had an appointment for the abortion. I'm assuming she made it so quickly so nobody would find out. At this point, I just felt lost and terrified. I just found out I'm pregnant at 15, and now I had to try to process my next steps. I had no idea what I was about to endure. I didn't know what abortion was. I just knew that I felt like I had no other option. I remember the feeling inside the abortion clinic. It was cold, it was dark, and it was very depressing. I can remember walking down a long hallway to a room. They had me do an ultrasound and tried to assure me that what I was carrying was just a piece of tissue. I remember waking up. I was cold and I felt numb and emotionless. The following week, I had to return to school like nothing had happened. I had to pretend I was okay, and I wasn't. I remember walking down the halls and just sobbing silently to myself. I had nobody to talk to. I became depressed and completely shut off from everything around me. I tried to fill the void of brokenness with partying and found myself going down another bad path. I ended up pregnant again at 17, and this time I made the decision to not choose life. I felt like since I had gone through it before, I could do it again. I was wrong. I had the same feelings this time, but even more remorse since it was my own decision. Fast forward a couple years later, I was so tired of running. I was broken. I didn't know where to turn to, but I knew only Jesus could fix me. I started reading my Bible and going to church. I found myself at the altar one Wednesday night and asked the Lord to please forgive me and wash me clean. Right then, I felt conviction. I knew that if I wanted the Lord to forgive me, I had to forgive the one person I had blamed all those years. After this, I experienced such an overwhelming love and comfort from the Lord. A couple months later, I was invited by some ladies at church to go to a March for Life. The night that I went, I felt a weight lifted as I stood for something I'd never stood for before, and that was life. God gave me another opportunity as a mom and has blessed me with two beautiful children who are 11 and 12. They remind me daily of God's grace and what a blessing a child is. God continues to remind me
that what was meant to destroy me is going to be used for his good. God's grace is sufficient, and he loves us enough to rewrite our story and use it for his glory. I only pray that what I went through can help bring peace and healing to others. I'm a firm believer that God strategically plans everything, and I'm sure me being here tonight is part of his plan. I really believe what Heart to Heart is doing in this community is such a blessing and can help make such a difference in so many lives. I'm giving God all the glory.
I'm sorry, I wasn't planning on so many notes up here. um, I was prepared and put it up here ahead of time, and I am not finding it. I'll just start talking. uh, you know, setbacks can happen. And so we've had several tonight, and so I appreciate y'all's patience on that. I hope you enjoyed your food and everything, and just the fellowship, as it has been a while since we have been able to be in person, and so I just find it a blessing that we're able to gather here and just celebrate the life and just what we've been doing at Heart to Heart. And so it means so much to see a room full of all of your faces to us. Not only do you help us just operationally throughout the upcoming year and support us financially, but by seeing your faces just shows how much you support us by you being here in person tonight. And so that's very motivating and encouraging. I think you will find that it's kind of no coincidence on how everybody has kind of been placed here tonight. And you will find that through our stories that there is not a coincidence. And so I'd like to share a little bit of mine of how I got led to Heart with you all. And so how I got to Heart, I was getting my bachelor's up at John Brown University, and I needed to find an internship for the summer. And so I was from Fort Smith area, and my advisor suggested or found Heart to Heart Pregnancy Support Center was the name at the time. And I just kind of looked at her just kind of like dumbfounded and just like, because I was getting my bachelor's in what is kind of known as a pre-counseling degree before you get your master's in licensure in counseling. So I was like, pregnancy test, what does that have to do, with what I'm going to do? But okay, I'll apply and see how that goes. And so I get there and I apply and I do the internship there. And to say it changed my life is probably an understatement. It opened my eyes to a world that I had never seen before. I saw things and heard things that I had never seen before. And so it changed me. But the neat thing is that when I stepped into that center, it felt like home. It just was like, I was like, there's something special about this place. So 3 months passed. 3 months is a very short time to be there. But it felt like I have been there my entire life, especially the connection that I had with Candace, our center director. It literally just felt like we grew up and were best friends, which is kind of how it felt. And so when it came to say goodbye, we knew that it wasn't the end. And so we just had that feeling. And so I go and I graduate, and for 2 years, about every month, I would message Candace and be like, hey, you have a job that's opened up at Heart to Heart? And she'd be like, no, I'm sorry. Try again another time or something. And so a couple months or whatnot, and I'd message her again. No, for 2 years, I did that. One day, randomly, I was actually looking for another job. And it's funny how God just has a way of with his timing and where we're supposed to be at the certain places that we're supposed to be who we're supposed to cross paths with at the certain times we're supposed to cross paths with them. And so it was no coincidence to me of when she texted me and said, "Hey, we have a position for a development director." I was like, "Development director? What's that?" I went to school for counseling. So I read the job description. I was like, I could do that. I just knew I had to be at Heart to Heart. And so with that and just where I was in my life and just some crises that were happening at the time, Heart to Heart came in at the right time. And as cliche as it sounds, the job saved me. And it got me motivated to do what I felt called to do. I knew I was supposed to be there, and I knew one day that I would be a licensed counselor. But I knew Heart to Heart had a big role in that time. And so I say that because our stories and just how we cross paths is not a coincidence. And I want you to consider maybe why you are here. Maybe you cross paths with somebody, and they cross paths with everybody, and they're like, "Hey, have you heard about Heart to Heart?" And maybe you came because you're curious, or maybe because you want to give support. Maybe you want to give support in a way that you never have before. And so I want to also share what it's like working at the center and helping the young girls a little bit to prepare you for the ways that you might be thinking and interacting and taking part. And so I have a very active role to where I am at the center. I speak with a lot of you all, and I appreciate all of you. But the part that I do not take lightly is walking into that pregnancy counseling room. Every time that I walk into that pregnancy counseling room, I treat it, even though I may know that she marked that she wants to parent. I treat the situation as if she may not. And so every time I walk in that room, I am prepared to go to battle for the life of not only the mother, but for the unborn child. Heart to Heart has a holistic approach in how we care for the mother and the child. We don't just stop and say, "Hey, you're pregnant. Best of luck to you. See you on the other side. Please choose life." We carry them through, not only the pregnancy, through offering the parenting classes where they can earn a new crib and mattress or a car seat, which helps relieve some of that financial burden a little bit that might be there, and also have a safe place for their child to sleep or transportation. But we're able to say, we can help you after the child's born, from newborn to the age of 3. We are here with you during those times of like diapers every week. They get about $100 worth of supplies once every 30 days. So it's about a week's worth of supplies treated for in a case of emergency. So you can imagine the emergency of job loss and loss of hours and a lot of the unexpected events, how important it was for us to be there. And it is because of you all and your support that we're able to stand in, because we know that y'all have us during these difficult times. Our shelves were full, they were maintained, and we were ready to serve and fight for holistically the women, children, and families. And so, I get to actively serve. I am the hands and feet, and I am humbled by that every day. But you all also get to be the hands and feet by being active tonight. And so, going with that, I would like to show you a video just for y'all to watch and reflect on.
You created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be.
I wanted to show you all that because it's important. And that's what you all are a part of tonight. And you have the opportunity in partaking in is being a part of the child. How impactful is it to be able to say, you saved the life of a child or the life of the woman, or you are actively a part of holistically taking care of the unborn child. You may seem like your part is small or that it may not make a big difference, but I promise you it does. And I hope with tonight, with the stories that have been shared and through that video, that you will feel led to continue to show your support, because we can't do the things that we do without you. Tonight is crucial to our future. The banquet keeps us operational so our doors can be open and we can do the things like you witnessed on that video that was just shown. It is our heart to serve in an open way to the community that we are able to. And it is because we can count on you all to do so. And so I hope that opened your hearts to reflection of just how important you are tonight in playing the role to be an advocate for pro-life and making sure the pro-life movement is stronger than ever. We are faced with very, very difficult times, and it is a spiritual battle every single day. It is a battle for life. And tonight you can actively say, I took a part of that battle, and leave with a smile on your face and know and continue to pray that you are actively a part of the battle for life. You play a vital role to Heart Pregnancy and Family Care Center. So before table hosts that I ask you to pass out the envelopes to your guests that you've invited here today, I would like to take a moment of prayer over this evening and just tonight, as we have had, I know, an emotional evening. And I just want to encourage you all that it is important that you all are here. And it just makes me so happy seeing a full house and seeing all y'all's faces. It makes everything that we do and what we go through each day worth it. And so if you'll join with me in prayer. Lord, I thank you just for this evening, as it has been an evening filled of you and the glory and just how much Heart to Heart means to you. Things don't always go as planned or the way that we thought they would, Lord, but you show up every time. And so I ask you to move on people's hearts. I ask you to continue to guide and protect and fill your spirit at Heart to Heart, Lord, to where when our clients enter that building, they feel your presence and love, Lord. And it's because of evenings like this, Lord, that love is able to be shown. And so I just thank you for this wonderful opportunity of us all being together, Lord. And I just thank you for this time of fellowship that we are able to have, as it has been so special. And to you be the praise for this evening, Lord. And may we continue to be an active part in the pro-life movement and fighting for the life in the womb. With all these things, I give you all the praise, honor, and glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
So table hosts, if you would do us a favor, hosts and hostesses, if you'd get that packet out that you got when you came in, and if you would pass those envelopes to your guests at your table and fill those out, make your pledge, write your check, however you're going to go about doing your donation. Make sure to get that completed, and then pass that back to your table host. And table hosts are going to put those back in the packet, and we'll have those picked up here in a moment. And while you do that, I just want to say, these were all the notes that I had for this evening for my small part, and Lauren did all that without hers. And so I just want to say, what a wonderful job. Okay, so I'll be back in just a minute, and we'll have folks come around and collect those. Thank you. Okay, table hosts, if you'll do us a favor, if you've got yours collected, just hold that packet up, and our packet collectors will begin walking around and collecting those. I'm not rushing you, but as soon as you get those done and collected, if you just hold your packet up, we'll make sure to have somebody come by and collect those. And do us a favor, if you would wait until your packet has been collected. But once your packet's been collected, we have roughly 9 minutes left on the silent auction. So you may make your final bids on that silent auction here over the next just few minutes. Table hosts, when you have those collected, hold that packet above your head, and we'll make sure to get that collected. Thank you. As the packets are being collected, I'd like to say one more time thank you to our center director, Candace Caputo, and our development director, Lauren Lum, and all of our board, staff, and volunteers. Could you join me in giving them one round of applause and thank yous? All right, give me your attention real quick, and I'll let you out of here. We're going to conclude with just a couple quick things. All right, one last time, table hosts, that plant in the middle of your table, that is our gift to you. Second, the silent auction is closed. If you bid, here in just a second on your way out, if you bid on an item, find that auction sheet. If you are the high bidder, you take that with, Lauren, am I correct? They take the auction sheet with them, correct? Yes. You take that auction sheet with you and you will pay on your way out. What I'd like to do now, here, give me just attention for just a second. We're going to conclude in prayer, but I had a very specific prayer request. We've said we're pro-life all night long. We have an attendee tonight who just shared with me that she has a severely prematurely born grandson who may be suffering brain damage. So in this final moment of our banquet, I'm going to pray, and I'm going to ask you to join with me as we pray for Thomas, brother's grandchild, so a great nephew. So we're going to be praying for Thomas because we're pro-life and we believe in miracles. Amen? Let's pray. Lord, we pray for this sweet child that you brought into this earth. Lord, you knew him before he was ever formed in his mother's womb. Tonight we claim healing, a miraculous, spectacular miracle in his body and in his brain, that you would give him strength, that you would guide doctors and nurses to work beyond their own abilities. Lord, they would be empowered by your Spirit to do the miraculous. We thank you for an incredible evening, supporting life for wonderful attendees. And Lord, let us hear, see, and experience miraculous things that stem from this very evening for the weeks, months, and years to come. Thank you for such a great community that supports this wonderful center. Lord, bless each one as they return home this evening. And God, draw them closer evermore to heart, Lord, in the call to support life. We thank you and we praise you for all these wonderful things, the things that you've done tonight and the things that you're going to do. Pray this in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen.